distinguished guests, and my dear students. It is my great honor and pleasure to share with you this day of celebration, the culmination of 4 years of learning and self-discovery in the passage to adulthood. I have the pleasure of teaching almost 1,500 of you each year when you come to GW barely out of high school as freshmen. I marvel when I see the transformation that has occurred in 4 years as you graduate as mature, self-assured young adults. As you move on to new challenges, I'd like to share some things I've learned about perspective, the long term versus the short term, and the narrow versus the broad. Most of you know that I teach economics. Economics is a hard subject. About halfway through each semester, students come into my office and say, "Professor Foster, I really like your class, but I'm an A student and I just can't take the hit to my GPA. So I will be dropping your class." I've accepted this as par for the course until this March, when a colleague sent me an interesting Washington Post article. The article discussed a study by Harvard economics professor Claudia Golden, who looked at how grades in her introductory economics class affected the chance that a student would major in the subject. She found that even if interested in a subject, many students tend not to choose it as a major if they are going to end up being B- students. They want to major in a subject in which they can get an A. This effect tends to be slightly greater for women than for men. She also found that this is not true of all students. Why are some students not scared away despite low grades? Professor Golden hypothesizes that these students have their eyes on the prize. They realize that lucrative majors tend to be more difficult and stingy with A's. They stay with their goals, come hell or high water, or B-minuses. Professor Golden's advice: don't settle for being an A student. By focusing narrowly on high grades, you may be limiting your earning and learning potential. Don't shy away in life from choices that are hard, embrace challenges in the short term, and strive for the prize in the long term. Keeping a long-term vision is important, but there is another type of perspective that is equally important: the narrow versus the broad. I heard about the Good Judgment Project this April on NPR. It is an experiment put together by 3 psychologists and people in the intelligence community. As part of the project, 3,000 very average individuals have been quietly making probability estimates about everything from Venezuelan gas subsidies to North Korean politics. Their predictions are often better than those of intelligence analysts with access to classified information. How is it that they are so astonishingly accurate? Well, it has to do with something called the wisdom of crowds. The wisdom of crowds is a concept first discovered by the British statistician Francis Galton in 1906. Galton was at a fair where about 800 people had tried to guess the weight of a dead ox in a competition. After the prize was awarded, Galton collected all the guesses so he could figure out how far off the mark the average guess was. Most of the guesses were really bad, way too high or way too low. But when Galton averaged them together, he was shocked. The dead ox weighed 1,198 pounds, the crowd's average 1,197. The point of the Good Judgment Project is that what was true for the weight of the dead ox is true for world events as well. The researchers concluded there's a lot of statistical random variation around a true signal. And when you add all the random variation on each side of a true signal, you get closer to the true signal. That is the wisdom of the crowd. Now, the key here is in understanding what the crowd is. Not your crowd, not my crowd, not the expert crowd. The crowd is a range of opinions from opposite sides. So, if you think broadly and are open to many different points of view, somewhere in the middle, you will find your own dead ox. When I was a kid growing up in India, a teacher gave me another perspective on thinking broadly. I remember doing pretty badly on a test. My teacher put her arm around me and said, "Don't forget, you must study well. It is for the good of the nation." My nation was a poor, underdeveloped country at the time. Each of our personal choices affects our nation, from the choice to consume locally grown food, to the choice of a career, to the choice of whether or not to have a child. As we make choices, let us also consider the needs of our nation, even if that nation happens to be the richest in the world. I hope your liberal arts education at Columbian College has helped free you from the prison of narrow perspective, and that your education here enables you to change the world. Congratulations, everyone. Don't be strangers.